2024, Oscar Piastri was disciplined for performing one of the greatest moves at Monza. The team blaming Oscar for the move being too close, too marginal for Lando Norris, who couldn't handle it. It was a perfectly calculated move that we saw also at Baku. Lando Norris, though made the #1 driver at McLaren, bottled the championship. In the best car on the grid, he couldn't help but fall under pressure wanting to pit for no reason in the raining Interlagos. I think it is safe to make the statement that Lando Norris could never be a champion. So for 2025, if McLaren wants to win, then new year, new me, right? Well, from what we've seen, Zach clearly said, my ass. Australia was a nightmare for every single driver on the grid. A strike to start the new year of Formula One. Pure chaos. Mixed context behind a lot of it. Tons at stake. New impressions given. But as some had their good moments, no one was forgiven. Every single driver on the grid was bitten by the snake of Adelaide. At Albert Park. I miss Adelaide. The McLarens went off the road, as we recall. In the end, Lando Norris won the Grand Prix. Oh, so that means that what I said earlier about Lando Norris not being able to win a championship is all bull. Let me explain. In 2024, we already saw a glimpse of the Tiger's teeth. He wasn't amazing in qualifying, but boy has he improved, because we saw a different animal in this year. But come China sprint qualifying and the spotlight is taken from the McLarens, it's given to Lewis Hamilton in his Ferrari. Lewis made a perfect start keeping Max behind. Oscar was in stealth mode, keeping his position in third. Charles fends off George to set an attack on Oscar. Oscar fends Charles off. Lando gives place to an 18-year-old. No one touched him. Why is he on the gravel? Oscar stayed back, letting the champions fight it out for the start. He got within a second of Max Verstappen, while Lando Norris couldn't get within a second of Lance Stroll. Oscar got too close, attacking Max, biding his time. Max's front tires are dead. 0.5 seconds average. Oscar makes the move at the hairpin he mastered. You know, the one he said was the hairpin of his life? We're gonna get back to this. In the end, Hamilton won the sprint. Oscar came second, Max third, George fourth, Charles fifth. Side note, both Ferraris were stronger with Lewis Hamilton's tune on it. Ferrari was on top, while Lewis was. The impression I got during qualifying is that Charles was not able to rotate the car enough because it wasn't in our front end, because we know Lewis likes rear end. So often in overcompensating to try rotate the car, then Charles would start sliding on an exit. This is what I was seeing a lot. But this is not the point. We're not talking about the Ferrari, we're talking about McLaren. This is a juicy topic we can have for another day. But for some reason, the Ferraris were nowhere to be seen on the China Grand Prix, where it matters. Leave the car alone. Charles will adapt. Okay, do we want to make this a Ferrari video? George Russell and Oscar Piastri start on the front row. Oscar gets the jump, but George is a little faster. Oscar squeezes him and then unloads his outside wheels and then makes the chop. If you want to know the significance of when drivers make the subtle Scandinavian flick, unloading their outside wheels and then turning in, check out the video Scott Mansell made about this. He goes into a lot of detail, breaking it all down. Oscar pits, and here we saw it, the slow pit stop. You tell me, dude, this happens all the time. It's just a mistake from the pit crew, just like drivers also make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. What are you talking about? Lando pits and then gets taken by George around the outside, but then takes back the place later. Lando won out his tires, and then in the end he had a brake problem.
This was a real rotten bit of luck. It didn't mess him up too much, but it was bad.
But now we come to Japan, Suzuka. I think we can sort of call this the holy grail of Formula One. The place, the track, it has the significance of Silverstone. I'm not just saying this because of what happened in 1988 and 1989 and 90 and 91. Suzuka is a track that tests drivers on multiple different things. It has a very special rhythm that not many other tracks have. From corner 1 until the Degnas is basically an expanded version of Tsubaki Touge. The rhythm is uncanny. And now we're back again. Max got pole position. The impression I got from this lap, Max was reflecting Ayrton. For the Grand Prix, Max wasn't any different. Oscar was clearly by a big margin the faster McLaren driver in this race. Lando was off by more than half a second. Oscar had the potential to catch Max consistently within a second of Lando, while Max started growing the gap to 2 seconds between him and Lando. Oscar was just roasting his tires in the draft. On lap 21, once Oscar was a little further back by 2 seconds, they pitted him. If McLaren wanted to beat Max, they would have pitted Oscar earlier, before his tires were dead. I think they could have pulled off the undercut and he manages his tires later in the race. He could have managed Max, but clearly this wasn't the intention. They pitted Lando with Max in an attempt to jump him, and after Lando mowed the lawn, he didn't get any faster at all. Oscar was faster by a full second. He asked Lando to switch positions so he could catch Max. There were 10 laps to go. Enough time to catch Max, and if he doesn't, well, there's enough time to swap the positions back to where they were. But Oscar was told to hold position. So Oscar absolutely bullied Lando on sheer pace, getting within a second of him. 0.6, 0.4, 0.3 seconds of Lando. Breakfast! Mclaren does nothing, sacrificing potential points for the sake of their golden boy. Oh, you want to talk about points? Let's see. Who's a little too dangerously close? Max. As you'd expect, Oscar was a little mad about this. In the press conference though, the way he handled this situation it was more than just responding to people with mics. This was a message. When Oscar was asked about the situation staying behind Lando, was it fair? Should Mclaren have given that position? Could Oscar catch Max?
Oscar just said, yeah, I said what I said in the race, so I wanted Lando to swap positions. But if I was in his position, I wouldn't want that. With a smile on his face, he didn't care. He just said it was all my fault for not starting on pole. First reason Oscar played it like this, well, he was extra chilled because he realized Lando. And he knew he was the better driver, he can beat him. It's not just on pure pace. Japan was kind of more like just a confirmation of what he already knew. Oscar driving at 8 or 9 tenths had the same pace as Lando going more than flat out. While Lando was touching the gravel, Oscar was chuckling. Oscar could have made the move. He could have made it into the first corner. He was 0.1 seconds away from him, in DRS range, ready to lunge. But he didn't. He laid low, obeyed the team holding position, making light of the situation, blaming himself for not qualifying good enough.
This spoke louder than all of Lando's wins. Oscar was taking responsibility of what wasn't his. This was the team's to manage because Oscar was nearly a full second faster and both McLaren suck in the draft of another car in front. Dirty air. But then Oscar just says, no, it's because I didn't start on pole. Oscar was basically implying that no, I don't need this team orders. You want to play this game? Well, hold my helmet, I'm getting pole. Come the Bahrain Grand Prix, Oscar takes pole and wins the race by 15 seconds.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
It was actually about 25 seconds because there was a safety car bringing the gap down. When this man says something, it happens. He's not playing around.
What on earth has happened to Max Verstappen? What on earth has happened to Max Verstappen?
Ooh, Max just outbraked himself and now he's in the gravel. He isn't the best driver. Max wasn't working for the fastest lap, you dummy. This was the test of the braking limit. Have you ever heard that saying, you don't know the limit until you cross it? This was at the first corner, right? Yeah, it was. Yes, Max has the inferior car. The Red Bull is slow. Which part of a race has the most pressure? It's the start. Who's that guy that's an absolute lion under pressure? Come on, who's that guy? He reflects Ayrton Senna sometimes in his driving. And on the other side of the paddock, who's that kid who always bottles the start? Ayrton Senna once said, if you no longer go for the gap, you're no longer a racing driver.
Some people agree, some don't. In the end, I'm the one who is doing. I am the one who is driving.
While Max is driving a tractor, there's no gap in Lando's McLaren. But Max knows the gap in Lando, and it's a big one. High pressure turmoil is what Max Verstappen lives for. He will not leave a gap open.
During this practice session, Max Verstappen was rehearsing a lunge into the first corner. Do yourself a favor and check out the 1993 Imola Grand Prix start. In fact, check the whole race, please. Because even though Ayrton Senna had to retire from hydraulic issues in his car, this was one of the greatest performances of his whole life. Defensive driving, attacking, tactics, the start. But why is all of this important? All that we're talking about is Max's genius during practice for the start of a race. Well, yes, exactly. What do you think this was? You see, almost every practice session that we've seen, Lando has been the fastest, or at least on the podium of FP1, FP2, FP3, pushing flat out for the entire session, nothing else, just flat out. He's qualifying for qualifying. Asking the practice sessions was, slow. But then come qualifying and he's on pole position. So many times in the season we've seen this. Oscar slow in practice, Oscar fastest on pole. He delivers where it matters. This is the same truth we saw in Max Verstappen. Lando simply loved driving flat out, whereas Oscar during practice sessions was collecting data, analyzing his driving, seeing what he should change in his technique. I go into a little more detail in all of this in the Formula One Paradox of Initial D. You should check that video out. You're not gonna learn much by simply driving flat out. Slow it down and you'll see things you never saw before. Slow down to go faster. By Oscar going slower, you could process a lot more of what was happening. You could try more stuff. And he was also analyzing Lando's data, applying it where he thought it would be faster, whether it's a technique of how to turn in the car. He'd be using the practice session as a practice session. And so Oscar being slower in practice, while Lando's having near crash moments trying to qualify, and Oscar beats Lando to pole, because he learned how to drive the car. Oscar Piastri is a man who uses his brain to win. And this inner racing lifestyle Oscar used throughout his racing, everything he does. It's not just about practice and qualifying, because Oscar is analytical about the limits. Thus, he methodically gets the most out of his car on track. Threshold braking, his steering technique, this is the epitome. This sums it all up. If you don't know how threshold braking works, at high speed you have more downforce, more grip. So when you brake, you can brake harder because you have more grip. As the speed goes down, as you decelerate, you lose downforce, you lose grip. Threshold braking is all about keeping it at the limit. As the downforce bleeds off, you bleed off the brake. So you don't lose a bit, you don't leave any braking on the table. It's braking the latest possible. His steering technique has the same principle. The more he bleeds off the brake, the more grip, the more deformation potential he has to use for cornering. And the more he decelerates, the more he can turn in and use the grip against the inertia. The more speed you carry through a corner, the less you can turn, because the car has inertia. So the more you accelerate, picking up speed, the larger the turning circle gets, the less you can corner. The more you decelerate, the smaller the turning circle can potentially get. Now, Oscar is a driver who keeps the tires at the limit as he decelerates, turning in more the more he decelerates. He keeps it at the deformation limit. He's mindful throughout the whole corner from braking to exit, and is purposely controlling the weight of the car and the tire's deformation throughout the corner. And you tell me, Jesse, oh, you see this in all the drivers, they always turn in more the more they decelerate. But there's a difference between using a technique and being efficient with it. Can't you see it? Look closer. Oscar's just more diligent in the honing of this technique, and while pushing, he is constantly mindful, feeling the limit of the tires. He's more refined. There's a reason he stands out. He'd reason out what he's feeling from the tires in his mind like AI and try to put the tires to the max, cause he has the mental capacity to do so. Oscar is just more mindful about it. It's not just something he does sometimes when he's on instinct, in the zone. This is something he's conscious about, something he's honing. Cause what you're gonna do when you're not in the zone? Aha, you see, Oscar is smart. This is just who he is. And because of all of this, he takes much better care of his tires, whether he's pushing or conserving. He doesn't leave anything on the table. Remember when Oscar said, I think that was the hairpin of my life in China? I'm sorry, Lando. You're not gonna learn anything from simply driving flat out all the time. Lando has improved though. He's not Lance Stroll. At entrance, Lando just throws it in and expects the car to rotate enough. Notice what I just said. Expects. Oh, this is diabolical. You can't expect your car to turn in. He's not present. He's not feeling the tires in mid-corner. So if at turn-in the car doesn't rotate enough, in mid-corner all he's doing is worrying that, well, I screwed up the turn-in. So he'd overcompensate and end up sliding on exit, trying to rotate enough and put the power down. But when he is perfectly in the zone, he can perform some amazing wonders. I've often got the impression watching him, at entrance he'd pull off a good turn in, then at mid-corner, he'd be steering the car like Sebastian Vettel. Use the diff and throw the wheel to rotate enough and then put the power down. But notice what I said, perfectly in the zone. You ask me, Jesse, what's the proof of this? How do I know that you're not just saying things because you don't like Lando? Spanish Grand Prix qualifying is the best example. It's the classic. Coming out of the last corner on the straight, Oscar is faster. You got
got better exit speed. Let's say it's just luck. Entering the first corner, Lando is dive bombing. He's braking much later than Oscar, but he is messy. Almost every time on exit, he's about to go into the grass. Just watching how nervous his steering is, I can see him about to make a big correction and the rear slide onto the grass. Okay, Lando, that was too marginal. And then it happened, what I just said. Lando slid, and Oscar's consistency was unforgiving. But Oscar didn't just get pole because he was being Oscar, the safer, more consistent driver. From the data Oscar found during practice, he found that he can take the last corner flat out while Lando lifted. You say I'm talking bollocks, you want proof? Okay, I'm gonna shut up, you listen carefully. The bastard didn't just go flat out, he shifted. That's the engine note, you can't deny it. Lando's engine note took a dip.
See, Charles Leclerc has a similar driving style. He also throws the wheel in. But straight after he throws, he's managing the front end. As the car decelerates more, he's turning in. You can sense that Charles is focusing in mid-corner as well. He's focusing more in braking. His mid-corner rotation is sublime. It's really good. It's not just about entry. Because Lando's depending on entry and then that's it, the car must rotate itself, well, he ends up with an uncertainty in his mind. When he's not confident in the car, he is not sure whether he will make the corner or not when he's about to enter it. So because of this panic, he'd often turn in too early. For more information on this critical problem of turning too early, check out the video on the perfect racing line. Oscar Piastri is a patient driver. Until he turns in, he's feeling the car and collecting data, analyzing exactly when he'd have the perfect amount of grip, when he's at the perfect place relative to the track, the apex, to turn in. Then at mid-corner, he's managing the grip at the limit. This is who Oscar is. It's not just about what he does.
One of the best examples of how Oscar uses his mind to win is in how he handles his opponents. Look at this moment of 2 years ago when Oscar Piastri was literally still a kid. Starting the Hungarian Grand Prix, heading toward the first corner, there's not a lot of space. If Oscar tries to break the latest to stay with them, look to overtake them that way, they'd be controlling his speed from the front. But Oscar doesn't do that. He controls his opponents. Oscar starts his first moment of braking before everyone else, but he's not nailing the brake in. Not knowing what they're gonna do, he puts himself one step ahead in anticipation, in a position where he can act on anything they do. And it's not always acting on their mistakes. It's taking a lunge. It's bluffing his opponents. You know, what Fernando Alonso does. The minute he sees an opening, look, he takes it. This is thoughtful, tactical, strategic racing. The mental capacity he has to be able to do this. You have to tip your hat for him. You just have to. I'm not letting you roll your eyes.
And this is why when Oscar says something, it happens. This is why after what he said in Japan, he got pole and won in Bahrain by over 15 seconds. Lando was witnessing the power of Oscar Piastri and he was shaken. Because next race in Jeddah, he crashed at possibly the worst racetrack on the calendar to be bothered. If you fall a little bit out of rhythm on this track, you're gone. The S-curves of Suzuka that were inspired by the S-curves of Tsubaki Touge, well, that's all that Jeddah is. A changing rhythm of fast-paced S-curves. Like 2 or 3 hairpins and chicanes. But this track is a demon. Lando went out of rhythm and he was thrown into the wall. Max puts it on pole. This is a lap to remember for the centuries. The Jeddah Grand Prix starts with Max and Oscar on the front row. Heading toward the first corner, Oscar gives Max a taste of his own medicine, lunging into the first corner, getting ahead at the apex. Sends Max off track.
Oh, that's a lot of emotional damage.
Max keeps the lead, gets a 5-second penalty and attempts to outrun Oscar, growing the gap over 5 seconds in order to win the Jeddah Grand Prix. Oscar keeps up the pace, stops to undercut, it's a slow pit stop. Max pits 2 laps later. Oscar ends up in front. He was a world champion in Formula 3, he was a world champion in Formula 2, and he becomes the leader of the Formula 1 championship.